the main ingredient for machine learning is predictive analytics. So what we've decided to do is create several email-related models, which are our foundational models. And we've been able to optimize these campaigns and provide value for customers based on the predictive analytics we provide prior to campaign deployment.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Unlocking the AI Advantage podcast. This is your host, Ramesh Dontha. And today, we're going to talk to the founder of an exciting startup based in Berkeley, California. So I'm going to let the founder himself introduce the company and himself. So welcome, Fred Tabshrani. Fred, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ramesh. Glad to be here. Thanks, everybody. So let me tell you a little bit about Loxz. We've been in the AI ML space since August of 2019. We became a formal company in December of 2020. We are a predictive analytics platform where we could essentially make predictions on marketing campaigns, sports. We're doing CPI predictions now for economic reports and so on. So we're very excited to be part of the AI landscape. It's growing like weeds. It's pretty amazing on what you can actually get. There's a lot of noise out there from generative AI and so on, but we also produce advanced Gen AI systems within each of the models we build.
Excellent. Hey, Fred, welcome. So you are a COVID baby then? Your company is, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. I would say that it was in the basement of my dad's garage where I started the company back in 2019. I had moved back in for COVID reasons and so forth. And so I was staying in the basement of the garage. And I said, well, let's get this AI thing started. Took a few classes at UC Berkeley, ended up with about 6 or 7 different ML courses that I received certifications with from UC Berkeley, Google. I think there was a couple of IBM courses at that time that I took. So, and that's how the company was born. We pivoted a little bit from overall AI research to more focused ML-based models. And then we began to build our foundational models from there.
Excellent. Hey, Fred, that's good. So it's a great intro. So now I would like to actually get to know more of you.
Sure.
So, but not just during the Loxz time. So I would like to know your journey.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit about, is this your first startup or X number of startups that you already did? So why don't you tell us about your previous journey?
Sure, absolutely. So I started in the business world in a small magical town called Alamo, California, with about 12,000 population. I started a business there called Mailboxes, Etc., which has been upgraded to the UPS store. We had the business in Alamo for 13 years. It was in a small strip mall there. And after taking a bunch of MBA classes and graduating with an MBA, I felt that it was really important to allow the citizens of Alamo to give them a little different look. And we created what's called the beta version of Mailboxes, Etc. And we moved across the street, doubled the space, and we created what's called the UPS store, or the beta version of what the UPS store was. We had an incredible experience where with the new location, our average order volume per customer almost doubled. So we went from, say, $10 a customer in the old store to about $22 a customer in the new store. And we expanded the store, offered at that time coloring copies, email services for customers. I think one of the first emails we sent out was when a customer received a package for their mailbox, we would automatically send them an email at that time. And that was back in the 1990s. So think about that. I remember charging $4 per fax that we sent out. And fax was a huge line item for us in that regard. So yeah, so my journey became a small business. We exited that business at about a 75x, which was really great. I think my dad liked that. And so that began my journey into the digital marketing world.
Excellent. So you have a business background, and then you actually started working in the digital space with the email, and you didn't even know that you are going to embark on a totally, a radical journey in the digital space. So then what happened? So you exited that, and then
Yeah. So,
what's next?
so the distinguishing factor when it came to being able to have an opportunity in the email space was getting my master's degree, right? So you have a master's degree in business administration, and this is now 2003 or 2004, 2 years, about a year or so after we exited the first company. And I was hired by a small Bay Area firm called VidiEbby, which is what's called an email service provider. And so, what at the time, there weren't too many organizations that were allowing companies that have a large email list to be able to send out to this large email list confidently to land in their inbox. So I became a VP of marketing for their company, stayed there for a year and a half, and went on to a company called Port 25, which made sophisticated email infrastructure for these email service providers. And that's where I established or became the voice and face of the company of Port 25, which was in the email space. They actually supplied this software infrastructure for these very, very powerful email service providers. So think of companies like MailChimp, or think of companies like Constant Contact, or think of companies like ActiveCampaign. These service providers now have millions and millions of small business customers that they reach out to. And I will create the connection later on in the interview of how we are servicing these email service providers. So think of companies like Expert Sender in Poland, or MailChimp here in the United States that was based in Atlanta. I know Ben Chestnut personally. I was in his office. He sold his company just recently to Intuit for $12 billion. So the email space is very, very powerful. Within that time frame, I spent about 10 years at a networking conference called Messaging Anti-Abuse Working Group. I would say these are probably some of the smartest technicians in all of in the entire world. We have government entities that are part of MOG. We have email service providers that are part of MOG. We have anti-abuse providers that are part of MOG. And this was a large consortium of about 500 people that are dedicated to the safety of email.
So how does it connect with? Actually, even before, let me. I get there now. So we talked a little bit about your journey. So now let's formally introduce your company that you're currently, this paragraph, Loxz Digital. So expand on what it does, how it started, and how it evolved since it started.
Sure. So like I said, we started the company in my dad's garage back in August of 2019.
Okay.
The idea of Loxz was to be a high-end consulting marketing agency, and we pivoted in October of 2019 to an ML company. So we became a machine learning collective, hiring our first data scientist in January of 2020 to start building and optimizing email campaigns. Loxz Digital, the name Loxz.com is a 4-letter domain. The MX is very strong, and it means liquid oxygen. So Loxz is a propellant, a gasoline propellant for spacecraft back in the 40s and 50s. And so in the term of Loxz, it was LOX, but we added the Z to it at the end to make it Loxz Digital.
Excellent. Yeah. So then you pivoted to ML space, and you now are an ML company. So if you were to meet an investor in the elevator, so I have these 1 minute and 30 second, 1 minute and 3 minute pitches. So pick one of those three and give us a pitch of Loxz now?
Sure, absolutely. So Lox Digital is a predictive analytics platform.
Okay.
We use machine learning specifically, and I think the word artificial intelligence is prostituted around many areas of business because it's really just the overreaching goal. Artificial intelligence is really just the umbrella. So what sits underneath artificial intelligence are components like machine learning, robotics, computer vision, reinforcement learning, and these are all part of the AI space. Our focus is on machine learning, and the main ingredient for machine learning is predictive analytics. So what we've decided to do is create several email related models, which are our foundational models. And we've been able to optimize these campaigns and provide value for customers based on the predictive analytics we provide prior to campaign deployment. What we're doing now at the most advanced stage in the most recent quarter of Loxz is that we are building in large language models to be able to ask the data of these email campaigns any question that the campaign engineer might want in order to know what her expectations are prior to that deployment. So for example, Ramesh, let's say the target variable, after a few inputs, what industry her campaign is being sent in, the type of email campaign, whether it's a transactional campaign or whether it's a promotional campaign, she can ask the question of the data saying, okay, my target variable I want to optimize for is click to open rate. I'd like to know when is the best day or time to send this email. So after these inputs go in there, she can go into our agent and say, please tell me what the best day to send the email is for the highest open rate or highest click-through rate. And she'll have this data in front of her prior to this campaign. What does this do? Well, it eliminates A/B testing. It saves countless hours for campaign engineers to be able to build these campaigns. And thirdly, what it does is the value that we provide is that she can change her target variable at any given time prior to the campaign. So if she wants to optimize for unsubscribe rates, or if she wants to optimize for average order volume, those numbers, assuming you have the data, those numbers will be available to the campaign engineer prior to deployment.
The question that I have is trying to understand a little bit more is who's your target customer? Is it the service provider or a large organization that sends tens of thousands of emails, or somebody like me who is a customer of an email service provider?
Yes, exactly. That's a good question. And so we have two types of customers. Enterprise email, which would be one large customer, say an NVIDIA or an Apple that sends out communications. That would be one type of customer we have. That's an enterprise email. So they have, 50 million subscribers like a Home Depot, and they want to optimize their campaigns. They would come to us. They would use something called a multimodal campaign where we would build in 2 or 3 or 4 different models within the email campaign and optimize it all at once. But the main brunt of the customer, and the reason why the 17-year experience in email is so important, is because I have personal experiences and ties with these powerful email service providers. And the ROI and the value we're bringing to these email service providers are pretty impressive. So for example, the end user would be a customer like yourself, who is a customer of the email service provider. But our core customer is more of a B2B. So we would be more of the email service providers, the MailChimps of the world, the Expert Senders of the world, Active Campaigns, List Tracks. Those are our type of customers. And then they would market our products to their customers.
Okay. So you would sell to your B2B company. That is good. So it now helps me understand that. So it could be a business, could be large business, or it could be a service provider and all.
Yes. Yeah.
So the other question is, at the beginning, you said Loxz has evolved, right? Evolved from what it started, something, and then afterwards you became an ML company. And then, but you also said it's a predictive analytics company, right? So So predictive analytics is a pretty large field, even though your start may be email thing. So did you evolve from on the predictive analytics front beyond the email, or your core market is still the email predictive
Yeah,
analytics?
we just signed a large contract with a company called Expert Sender. They're based in Poland. They're an email service provider. They
Okay.
have businesses from anywhere in China to Poland to Brazil. They're a large
Okay.
email service provider. I can't tell you exact number of customers they have, but I would say it would
Yeah.
be well into the thousands,
Okay.
maybe even the tens of thousands.
Yeah.
Um, the CEO there, his name is Krzysztof Jarecki. We conducted several demos to him and his technical team on how these predictions prior to deployment are going to help campaign engineers, and
Got
how
it.
to create an endpoint to be able to pipe in the data to the workflow of the campaign engineer. Ideally, the evolution is we're just at the simplest format. We're just a pipe serving predictions to an endpoint. How it looks like in a user experience for email service provider customers, that's up to the email service provider. It doesn't matter how it looks like to us. We just want to pipe in the most accurate models. So we evolved by beginning to create the first model, which is the first foundational model, which is the character count model. So, for example, what is the optimal character count to get the target variable, the desired target variable? So, for example, um, if a customer were to say, okay, my target variable is click to open rate, and I'm sending it to the software technology industry, and I'm sending it as a webinar type of email, um, I should create a shorter email because the urgency is to get registrations for the webinar. So the machine tells us, basically using regression analysis, the machine learning model tells us, okay, for this software technology industry with the webinar type of email, you should not use more than 150 words in your email to get the optimal number of registrations. Now, if the target variable is revenue per email, the number of words might change. So we give that information to the campaign engineer prior to deployment. Now, that is one of the simpler models that we create. The more sophisticated models, what we just are embarking on now is what's called the object placement model. Where should the image go? Where should the call to action button go in the email based on industry and based on campaign type? And obviously, there are more inputs that we are working on, such as integrating large language models within the data set themselves. So the campaign engineer can ask any question about the webinar type of email and say, okay, my expected registrations are 100 by the end of Friday. Please construct this email in a way that I can get 100 registrations by Friday, for example.
Got it. Hey, Fred, just going into the next level of detail on the AI ML front, right? So because we introduced you, your journey, we'll come back to it later on, of course, and then Loxz, now we have an idea what it is. So the next question is in the AI ML space. So as you know, AI ML space itself has, significantly exponentially increased over the last 3-4 years.
Yeah.
And then much more so with the generative AI coming in the landscape within the last year.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we all know, I don't have to repeat this, right? So OpenAI, ChatGPT, so it's ad nauseum. People talk about it. And then it brought this large language models into the forefront.
Yeah.
And you talked about LLM. So can you talk about large language models, LLMs, in the context of the email marketing that you are, Loxz is involved in? So we don't have to go into technical weeds, but tell us, like, where do you have the large language model for you? Have you built it? Are you leveraging something? Those kind of details.
Yeah, we just created a guide for the ability to integrate large language models within the data set of an email campaign. And that's what we're working on right now. This is good timing and a great question, Ramesh, because large language models can be sophisticated, like llamas and ChatGPTs and Bard and so on. And they can also be very domain specific,
Yes.
such as creating a large language model that Bloomberg just created called, I don't remember the name of the large language, but it's
Financial industry.
dedicated to finance, right? Or our large language model, the corpus that we've built our large language model on, are all email related text. That is very, very critical to being able to create a very accurate model based on the different types of campaigns for the large language model. So you actually integrate all of the content of these large language models. And you, as a campaign engineer, can ask the questions about the data, very specific questions about the data, and be able to get these predictions well into the future prior to sending out the campaign. So if a domain specific email, we can look at all of the webinars that have ever been sent via email, and we will know the best words to use, the most optimized place to put a call to action, how many words to be used. But the campaign engineer can then drill down into the target variable that she wants. So if she wants to know how many registrations, what is the optimal open rate or click-through rate if I were to send this email on a Friday, she will know that. How many registrations can I expect if I were to send this email on a Sunday? And then the agent, the ChatGPT agent, or the agent that we're using, the large language model, will take this information, process the information, and spit out metrics. And I'd be happy to demo it to you sometime in the future on how this works. But it's really a very, very sophisticated way to be able to get campaign metrics prior to deployment.
Got it. Excellent, Fred. Thank you. There you have it, folks. That's the end of today's episode. So we introduced Fred Topsharani, who is the CEO and founder of Loxz Digital. So what you heard today is a founder who evolved from a brick and mortar kind of a business, who started as a brick and mortar business, like in mailboxes, etc., and slowly started getting into digital space. And afterwards, during COVID, and he attended some courses, and then he really got savvy on the AI ML space, and then he started a company, AI ML company, in the middle of COVID. And he also pivoted. He explained to us how he pivoted. As when he started as a consulting company, but he evolved into a predictive analytics platform. And we'll be tracking the journey of Loxz Digital and Fred as we go along, how Loxz Digital is going to leverage AI/ML, or how it's going to pivot, how it's going to raise funds. So it's a documentary journey of an AI/ML company. That's the wrap for today.